Hey guys, what's up? This is Uri for Guerrilla Poker. Today I'm going to do a hand history review about a hand played between BERRI SWEET and LLinusLLove. This is a hand that's been requested by one of the posters in YouTube. You guys are always welcome to request hands, of course. It's a cool hand. It illustrates a concept that I think a lot of high-stakes players are very familiar with, but that might look super insane when you're not familiar with it. It would look just batshit crazy. So it's a cool hand to talk about. And yeah, without further ado, this should be a short one, so let's jump into it. But yeah, okay, so this hand looks like this. They are 110 deep effective. We always look at effective, stack depth. We don't care that Linus has $50K, although, I mean, it's nice for him. But BERRI SWEET raises to 261, LLinusLLove 3 bets roughly 4x. And BERRI SWEET calls. I discussed many times how as stacks get deeper, the 3-bet size gets smaller, especially when it's Linus doing it. This is apparently a theory thing, but yeah, everything standard so far. So 10-9-5 two-tone, and we have Linus checking. So he's not range betting this board. He's playing a polarized strategy. And I think you kind of have to, because 10-9-5 two-tone is a board that misses ace, king, ace, queen, ace, jack. And you can't go and just bet everything. Your opponent has heads up. He has stuff like jack 10 off, queen 10 off, ace 9 off. All these hands are calling the 3-bet. So he has too many pairs. You have too many on-paired hands. You need to be a bit cautious. And BERRI stabs 1/3 pot, which as a size does indicate in terms of thresholds. He can stab a 10, a 9, a 5, any pair pretty much. So Linus calls, and at this point also important to remember, most big hands would be check raising for Linus. So after check calling, very likely no jacks, queens, kings, aces left in Linus's range. He could still have some slow plays, like a set. He could still have a flush draw or a straight draw, but not very likely ace, 10, jacks, queens, kings, maybe aces. It's easier to slow play. So turn queen of clubs, check, check. And river 7 of clubs. And here Linus bets roughly 2/3 pot and BERRI calls. And the interesting thing here, and the reason I was saying high stakes players are familiar with this, is that it's a 4 flush. And 4 flush boards lead to very polarized betting ranges. So pretty much when you're bluffing on a 4 flush in this kind of situation, you either have something that is not a flush, like there's a value threshold. How high does your flush need to be to bet, right? Let's say, Linus 3-bet, let's say 9 high flush, like 9 of clubs is good enough, or 8 of clubs is good enough, right? So somewhere in that area. So he's betting the, 8s with a club, 9x with a club, so 9-8 of clubs or something, jack x with a club, which would be like ace jack of clubs, ace king with a club. Those types of hands, all betting. That's a value bet range. Bluffing range has no club, and it's never going to be a set. It's never going to be 2-pair. Now, some guys will turn something like bottom pair into a bluff or middle pair into a bluff in some situations. But very often, it's going to be an on-paired hand. So if Linus check called with, say, ace king no club or ace jack no club, those would make natural bluffs. Possibly, depending on how he perceives the board, he might bluff with a pair. And that's it. So yeah, what we see in the end at showdown is Linus showing down ace 4 of diamonds. Ace 4 of diamonds, like we said, he's playing polarized, so he doesn't always c-bet. It's a strong enough hand to check call, and it needs to bluff river, right? So Linus played fine. And BERRI shows up with pocket 6s. And pocket 6s is a bit of a weird call, because look how weak pocket 6s is. But, in a way, if Linus is betting either a flush or ace high, then 6s is just as good as kings, right? For calling the river bet. Like, Linus's size implies this is not going to be a 1-pair hand. So, anything you have that beats a bluff. And the only potential issue with 6s is if you think Linus is maybe bluffing with a hand like 6-7 suited, 7-8 suited, pocket 8s with no club. If that were true, 6s would be a bad call. And BERRI SWEET has a tendency, we've seen this in many hands, to make calls where his hand beats a lot of the bluffing range, but maybe loses to some of the bluffing range. Like we have seen a hand in an old video where Linus bet the river and BERRI SWEET called and Linus won with king 7 high in a 3-bet pot. So BERRI definitely takes this thing to an extreme. For sure, this is not him trying to play GTO. He thinks Linus is over bluffing this line. And, you know, if we go back to the old king 7 hand, he was right. He caught Linus bluffing. He just, you know, missed the threshold of where Linus would bluff. Here, the showdown doesn't indicate he missed the threshold, but some of the time you would see this hand and Linus would show up with 6-7 of diamonds and BERRI would muck and you would be like, what the hell just happened? So hopefully now you know. The dynamic of the situation is BERRI is assuming Linus is drawing bluffs from a certain hand strength or weaker, and then as long as he beats bluffs and he thinks it's a good spot, he clicks call. That is how BERRI plays. If you ask, like, GTO, is this call okay? I would guess it's probably fine. For completeness' sake, let me actually show you guys, because it's kind of crazy. But yeah, this is probably gonna be like a 0 EV-ish or slightly losing call. So let's quickly run through this sim. I'll let Linus have a half pot size. We can see he checks a lot. Ace-4 of diamonds mostly checks. And facing a third pot bet, it actually folds always. So Linus got the threshold wrong. It's a slightly losing call. Might be a bit surprising, but yeah, like we said, lots of ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack. So call. Turn is the queen of clubs. Of course, 6s for BERRI SWEET can stab. That's fine. Queen of clubs, check, check. River, 7 of clubs. And here we see that Linus's bet size gets used often. Oh yeah, and in terms of which club do you need to bet, any club will do, right? So even if you have 3s with a club, that is actually good enough to bet this size. Okay, so any flush is good enough to bet. The unfortunate thing for BERRI, I think, is that actually when you don't have a flush, Linus is actually supposed to bluff with a hand like 6-7 suited, or with a hand like 6s, or with a hand like 7-8 suited. And these were the hands where I was saying, you know, this is the issue for BERRI, theoretically speaking. Where if Linus bets, that would mean that 6s is just losing tons of money calling, and you just need something a bit better. Like you can call with a 9, but not with 6s. Hopefully that makes sense. This is a classic BERRI mistake. We've seen BERRI do this multiple times in huge pots. So we have to hope for his sake that his instincts are good enough to make up for the fact that he is misunderstanding bluffing thresholds. He's treating things as more polarized than they actually are. And you know, when so much stuff hit pairs, Linus is forced to, well, he's not even forced to, like, what you can see is that the solver actually prefers to bluff with a pair of 7s than with ace-king high. That is the way the equilibrium works. And then was BERRI's play good or not? Depends how you judge his reads, and I guess the time and the results of the match will tell. Yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.